Well, in what could have been a 1-1 tie in the Western Conference Semifinals, the Warriors outscore Portland 34-12 in the fourth quarter to take a 2-0 lead in the series on the road. They play Portland this Saturday. Most importantly, they got this done without Stephen Curry, the first time that they've had to have a comeback win without him.
17 down is a lot of points when you don't have, not only did not have Steph, they didn't have Klay shooting well. I mean, they needed to do this a different way. Normally it's, hey, let's hit 3 threes, get right back in it. They didn't have that tonight. They didn't have the money ball. Not only that, Portland was game. Portland was ready to answer the bell. So they had to go a different route tonight, which just shows the versatility of this team. This is why it's one of the best teams in NBA history, because they have multiple weapons in their bag. And tonight, it was defense, it was offensive execution, it was half-court basketball, and they just overwhelmed Portland, which is far more impressive than overwhelming Houston Rockets.
And we had talked about this pregame, that we expected it to almost be a 180 instead of coming out and Klay Thompson having an 18-point first quarter. The Warriors struggled, and they struggled. It was, there was a time where, as you said, a 17-point lead, a 17-point third quarter for Damian Lillard. That stuff you can't overlook. Why did it happen that way? Game twos always seem to kind of have that trap game feel to them.
The Warriors play like that here. They took 17 threes in the first half, and they weren't making them. Meanwhile, Portland was 9 for 16 from three. They were making them. The Warriors are trying to go for daggers, go for the big three. Klay's rushing threes. They get like that sometimes here when it gets a little bit too easy for them. Steve was right. When game one is easy, kind of get nervous for game two because, they let their guard down and the other team is hungry. And that's what happened. You could see them going for the highlight play, going for the big play, going for the crazy pass. Not getting their rotations together. I mean, how many wide open shots did Portland have? They just weren't themselves. And, that's something we've seen from them last year. We've seen it from them in times this year. This time, Portland almost made them pay. It was like they had to get their life together for a moment, right? It was like, all right, let's play for real before we end up going 1-1. And that's why you need to play Stephen Curry when he can play, because you can't mess around with playoff games. This thing break the wrong way, we're looking at a completely different series, and you don't mess around with stuff like that. If Steph can play, he needs to play, because Portland just might catch you a game.
Klay Thompson has been the one who's been very vocal about this being a game of runs, but particularly with this Portland team that he knows can get hot from three like they did. All of a sudden, right before the end of the first half, it was a 3-point game. Portland hits 2 back-to-back threes. They hit back-to-back threes. It's a 9-point game. At that point, he looked really frustrated. He gets a technical foul a little bit later on. What did you see change with him that he was able to get going again in the fourth quarter? Obviously, Festus Ezeli was a huge part of that, too.
I think he stopped shooting threes. He stopped gunning for threes. He started going to the basket. They started executing their offense. If they work inside out, three-pointers outside, that are produced by the system, much more likely to go in. Three-pointers, like on the break, going one-on-one, pull-up, those aren't as likely. Now, if Klay feeling it, all right, go get your money, Klay, but he wasn't feeling it, so they had to adjust. And once they started executing, and you saw 4 or 5 passes and cuts and all this and that, then those threes started getting to be a little bit more rhythm. I think that's what changed. They stopped trying to play hero ball and started playing Warriors basketball.
Festus Ezeli clearly steals the show, playing 4 minutes in the third quarter and then being the best player on the floor in the fourth quarter. We'll talk about him, but first, Andre Iguodala. It just seems like every time they call on him, he can produce very big quality minutes.
Is he holding out? Like, what's the deal with Andre? Like, why aren't you scoring 20 a night? Like, what's going on with you? He's got crossovers. He's getting to the bucket. He's going to the rim. He's making free throws. Like, Andre, stop holding out. And if you play like this all game, it wouldn't be close, right? This dude, every single time you need him, he shows up. And that's part of his shtick now, right? He's like, I'll give it to you when you need me. I'm not giving it to you every time. But it's something they got in their back pocket. Like, whenever they need to be settled, to be calmed down, Andre's there. He handled the ball a lot when Portland was pressuring. Andre had the point, and he was much more comfortable. So this is what he does. He an OG in the game now. He's 30-plus years old. He got a lot of miles on his legs. Andre just going to bring it when they need him to, and they don't need him to all the time.
Festus Ezeli has had an up-and-down year. Draymond Green didn't call it that. Despite the 31 games he missed with a knee injury, despite the, the near I almost got traded punked that he almost bid at. And on top of that, riding the bench, I mean, he was an afterthought for a lot of, for the entire Houston series pretty much. And then in game 1, didn't play at all. Had the best game of his life on Tuesday night.
Festus I think he thought he was getting cut, right? He was about to cry in the car. He might have cried.
I would have cried if I were him.
He might have cried. They just didn't show it. I should ask him if he really cried. But, this isn't new for Festus. This is one thing that's a benefit from a team that's been here before. Festus, every year in the playoffs, is battling something, and his situation is, sketchy. You don't know what he's going to do. You don't know if he's going to play. He's kind of a pro at this now. His rookie year, he ended up playing. Bogut came back, and then it was like, okay, am I the starting center or am I not? Last year, they went small, and it was like, okay, am I going to play? So he's used to this, and his comfort coming into the game, it kind of showed. Even though he's a young center, Festus has been around a few blocks. He's played a lot of playoff games. He was ready to go, and that's probably the best compliment you could give a guy coming off the bench, is to be ready to go. Because Verjao wasn't ready to go, and Spates wasn't ready to go, and Festus Ezeli was ready to go. So you could tell one of those guys was a little bit more he's been through this before, with the uncertainty about his injuries, about whether he fits in a rotation, whether it's matchups. I have no idea why Anderson Varejao is playing. I don't know. Steve said it was a matchup thing. I don't know. I don't understand the matchup. I don't get why he looked at this and said, let's go with Varejao. I don't understand. But he figured it out in time for game 2, and that's kind of what matters. So I think we'll see more Festus.